Take a good look at that resume you proudly prepared and polished on LinkedIn. Those skills, those diplomas, those sleepless nights, they are all essentially a beautifully written obituary. Why? Because soon there won't be any human resources left to read that resume. Even worse, there won't be any need for a human to do that job either. Welcome to Blue Glass. Today we are discussing the question on everyone's mind. What will happen when AI and automation leave everyone unemployed? And not just cashiers or drivers, but lawyers, doctors, software developers, artists, and CEOs. Will that world, where the Monday blues are gone and we forget to set our alarms, be a paradise or a Hunger Games where we turn into an army of the useless? If you're ready, we are heading into that future where the working class, white-collar workers, and even bosses retire en masse. How did we get dragged into this process? In the beginning, they told us very sweet lies. They said, AI will do the drudge work, fill out the Excel spreadsheets, and we humans will focus on creativity, philosophy, and art. What a naive thought, isn't it? Look at where we are today. AI is writing poetry, composing symphonies, drawing award-winning paintings, while we are still at home folding laundry and emptying the dishwasher. Automation came for muscle power first. White-collar workers looking at robotic arms in factories and saying, "My job is at a desk, I'm safe," were under a massive illusion. Because AI's business isn't with muscle power, it's with data processing power. When there is an algorithm that can analyze thousands of pages of case law in 3 seconds, something a lawyer would take weeks to read, which law firm would want to pay you a salary? Which hospital would employ a radiologist who gets tired, sleep-deprived, and has a margin of error when there is a system that diagnoses thousands of MRI results with zero mistakes? The process is based on a very simple economic rule: zero marginal cost. A robot doesn't get sick, doesn't unionize, doesn't say my motivation is low, and doesn't ask for overtime pay. Today, there are language models that do the jobs of copywriters, translators, and content creators in seconds, and for free. Illustrators and graphic designers who said, "I'm an artist, I'm safe," are now staring helplessly at their portfolios in the face of visual AIs that create wonders with just a few words of prompting. Thousands of people in corporate call centers have already been replaced by AI assistants that can empathize based on the tone of your voice and never get angry. Entry-level software developers are trying to compete with algorithms that write code and debug in seconds. Cashiers have long been replaced by self-checkout counters, and stockbrokers by high-frequency trading bots that execute trades in microseconds. The phrase, "one day they will take our place," is no longer a prophecy. It is tonight's evening news. Throughout history, technology has always destroyed old jobs and created new ones. Carriage drivers lost their jobs, but taxi drivers emerged. But what if this time is different? When the agricultural revolution arrived, horses didn't say, "Great, the tractors are here. You won't carry heavy loads anymore. You go philosophize in the meadows." They became irreversibly obsolete, and their numbers dwindled. For the first time in human history, we are creating a workforce smarter and more capable than ourselves. Perhaps we are the horses in this story. Let's look at those scenarios first, because this scenario could be the greatest saga of liberation in human history. If machines produce everything, if drones plant the fields, if autonomous trucks handle logistics, if 3D printers build buildings, costs approach zero. We call this a post-scarcity economy. In this scenario, working ceases to be a necessity and turns into a hobby. You don't have to spend 10 hours in your cramped cubicle in that corporate plaza you hate just to survive. Governments or giant tech companies distribute this massive wealth they produce to everyone as universal basic income. Every month, money is deposited into your account, enough for you to live comfortably. So what will people do all day? Think of the Star Trek universe. There is no money there. People work not to get rich, but to self-actualize. Some grow tomatoes in their garden, some explore space, some just read books. Perhaps what we call unemployment is actually freedom. Humanity is finally freed from 10,000 years of agricultural and industrial slavery. When the alarm rings on Monday morning, your reason for waking up isn't your boss, but simply what you want to learn that day. From an optimistic point of view, AI isn't taking our place. It is retiring us from the war for survival. Sounds perfect, doesn't it? Well, in that useless class scenario, where everyone is unemployed, how much can we believe the fairy tale that governments or tech giants will give us universal basic income and make us comfortable? Let's smash those rose-colored glasses and ask the hardest question on the table. Why should the system continue to finance billions of people who are no longer of any use, who neither produce nor fight? Throughout history, the elites had to feed the masses because they needed them. They needed the peasant to plow the field, the worker to toil in the factory, and the soldier to die at the border. But when production is completely handed over to autonomous factories and security to swarms of armed drones and robotic armies, the strategic value of the human masses in the eyes of the elites drops to zero. If machines and the small faction that owns them are enough to keep the system running, won't the remaining billions of biological beings simply be seen as a swarm of resource-consuming parasites? Why should they put you on a payroll just so you can sit at home and play games with your VR goggles? This is where the darkest possibility begins: extinction. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a Hollywood movie, raining lasers from the sky. It could be a much quieter and entirely legal liquidation process. Masses simply left to their own fate, deprived of healthcare, shelter, and nutrition. A world where elites retreat into self-sufficient, high-vault, autonomous Silicon Valley cities, watching the billions of useless people left outside slowly be wiped off the face of the earth by famine, pandemics, and climate crises. If horses rapidly decreased in number after tractors were invented because they lost their economic value, why should the fate of the biological human, who has entirely lost their economic value, be any different? Mercy? There is no line of code for mercy in the system's algorithm. The useless class and the crisis of meaning. Now let's descend into the real world, into the dark corridors of capitalism and human psychology. The first major problem: who owns the robots? If the ownership of the means of production, AI, and algorithms is in the hands of a handful of tech giants, trillion-dollar companies, why should they share that wealth with you? Throughout history, when have those in power ever voluntarily distributed their power to the people that they would do so now? Universal basic income might not be a blessing, but rather hush money given to ensure people don't rebel and burn down the data centers. The second and even more terrifying problem is psychological: the useless class. This concept, put forward by Yuval Noah Harari, describes not billions of unemployed people, but billions who have become unemployable. For thousands of years, we have defined our identities through our jobs. When you meet someone new, what is the first question you ask? What do you do for a living? So, who are you when you have no job left to do? A life where you have no valid reason to wake up in the morning, to sweat, to get tired. The human brain is designed to release dopamine by struggling with difficulties. If everything is free and you are of no use, a massive crisis of meaning begins. Imagine a dystopia where billions of people just put on their virtual reality goggles and spend their days numbed by cheap synthetic drugs or hyper-realistic games generated by AI. We are like the batteries in the Matrix. The only difference is the machines don't even need our energy. They are just distracting us with digital pacifiers so we don't wander around and cause trouble. Do you think this life is a life worth living? Isn't a paradise without meaning, struggle, and creation actually just a gilded hell? AI taking over all professions is not a science fiction fantasy. It is merely a matter of a timeline. Moreover, the most painful part won't be the result, but the transition period. That is, the next 20 to 30 years that we will live through. That chaotic interim period where the old system has collapsed, but the new post-scarcity economy hasn't been established yet. Where the masses are unemployed, but the bills still keep coming. The wave of automation will shake not only the economy, but also philosophy, politics, and the definition of being human to their very roots. The real problem we need to solve is not coding or AI architecture. The real problem is this: how will we distribute the wealth, and how will we find a purpose without our jobs? This is a decision that needs to be made not just by engineers, but by sociologists, philosophers, and all of us. Because that autonomous truck has already hit the road and it has no brakes. Now I ask you, and please, let's discuss this honestly in the comments. Are we going to live in a world where your salary is paid by the government every month and working is strictly forbidden or unnecessary? Do you think a human can exist without working? Or when humans start becoming unnecessary, will they simply get rid of them? You can like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching Blue Glass.